First Contact Initiative. From the Archives of the Galactic Historical Society. Entry date: 4890-03 Standard Universal Time. Subject: The Human Paradigm Shift. The question that echoed through the crystalline chambers of the Grand Council wasn't whether humanity would join the galactic community, but how they managed to upend 10,000 years of established protocol with a single ship. The Starweaver emerged from Earth's orbit on a quiet stellar morning, its quantum signature barely registering on the Council's detection arrays. The Monitoring Division, accustomed to tracking the usual fleets of emerging civilizations, initially dismissed it as a data anomaly. It wasn't until the vessel seamlessly shifted through 5 dimensions of spacetime that the ancient races of the galaxy realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Director Xylix of the First Contact Bureau remembers that day with all 4 of his neural clusters. We expected the humans to follow the emergence protocol. A flotilla of ships, each specialized for a different function. Every species since the Great Awakening had done so. Instead, we detected a single vessel, but one that defied our understanding of engineering limitations. The Starweaver wasn't just a ship, it was humanity's answer to a question no other species had thought to ask. Why do we need multiple ships when we could create one that adapts? Its hull was composed of self-evolving smart matter, programmed with algorithms that could reconfigure its entire structure within moments. The ship's AI core, dubbed ARI, Adaptive Reasoning Intelligence Array, represented a breakthrough that the mechanoid civilizations of the Nexus cluster had deemed theoretically impossible, true quantum consciousness that could evolve without losing stability. But it was the crew selection that truly demonstrated humanity's unconventional thinking. Instead of the standard complement of thousands, the Starweaver carried just 7 humans. Captain Sarah Chen, the youngest fleet commander in Earth's history. Dr. Marcus Webb, whose work in xenobiology had revolutionized humanity's understanding of potential alien life. Commander Aisha Patel, whose neural architecture theories had helped birth ARIA. Dr. James Morrison, the quantum mechanist who had cracked the code of dimensional shifting. Lieutenant Diana Rodriguez, whose diplomatic algorithms had predicted and mapped thousands of potential first contact scenarios. Dr. Kwame Osai, the xenolinguist who developed the Universal Response Protocol. And finally, technical specialist Yuki Tanaka, whose biomechanical interfaces allowed the crew to connect directly with the Starweaver's systems. They weren't just specialists. They were synthesists, individuals chosen for their ability to cross-pollinate ideas across disciplines. Each crew member could perform any role on the ship, their enhanced neural networks allowing them to adapt as fluidly as the vessel they commanded. The Starweaver's first contact with the Council's observation post near the Rigel system demonstrated why humanity's approach would change everything. When the post's automated defense systems, following standard protocol, launched a scanning probe, the Starweaver didn't just evade or defend. It absorbed the probe's energy signature, analyzed its coding structure, and responded with a modified version that carried not just data, but a complete understanding of human culture and intentions. It was like watching a student become the teacher in a single moment, recalls Senior Observer Zix 427. The probe we sent was based on technology that had taken our civilization millennia to develop. The humans not only understood it instantly but improved upon it in ways we hadn't considered possible. As the Council scrambled to understand this unprecedented approach, the Starweaver's true purpose became clear. Humanity hadn't built a ship to join the galactic community. They had created a bridge. Every system, every protocol, every element of the vessel was designed not just for exploration or survival, but for understanding and adaptation. The ship's database contained not just human knowledge, but space for the knowledge of every species they might encounter. Its communication systems weren't designed to simply transmit messages, but to evolve new languages of interaction. Even its defensive capabilities were focused on transformation rather than destruction. Any attack could be converted into energy for the ship's systems. When the Council finally made formal contact, they expected to find a crew anxious to prove humanity's worth. Instead, they found 7 individuals calmly ready to demonstrate why quality would always triumph over quantity. Captain Chen's first words to the Council would be recorded in the annals of history. "We come not to join your community, but to help it grow. One ship is all we need, because one ship is all it takes to show that the universe is not a place to be conquered, but a puzzle to be solved together." As the first day of contact drew to a close, the ancient races of the galaxy found themselves facing an uncomfortable truth. Perhaps their millennia of protocol and procedure had led them down a path of complexity when simplicity was the answer all along. The humans, with their single ship and 7 crew members, had not arrived as supplicants to the galactic community, but as innovators who would challenge every assumption about what was possible. The age of the fleet was over. The era of adaptation had begun. The Trial of Titans. From the archives of the Galactic Historical Society. Entry date: 4890-04 Standard Universal Time. Subject: the Helios Incident. The true test of humanity's unconventional approach came 3 months after their initial contact with the Council, in what would become known as the Helios Incident. The Starweaver had ventured into the unexplored regions of the Carina Nebula when they encountered something that had haunted the nightmares of spacefaring races for millennia: the Titans of Helios. The Titans were ancient, a species so old they remembered the galaxy's first civilizations. They had evolved beyond physical form, existing as vast clouds of plasma energy that consumed stellar matter for sustenance. Their territory encompassed 17 star systems, and they had destroyed every vessel that had crossed their borders for the past 12,000 years. When the Starweaver's sensors first detected the plasma formations, ARIA immediately recognized patterns that no other civilization had documented. "The energy signatures aren't random," Dr. Webb observed, his enhanced neural interface processing the data streams. "They're speaking, not through conventional communication, but through the modulation of their own substance." Instead of retreating, Captain Chen made a decision that the Council would later describe as either brilliant madness or maddeningly brilliant. She ordered the Starweaver to reconfigure its hull into a crystalline lattice that could resonate with the Titan's plasma frequencies. "If they communicate through energy," she explained to her crew, "then we need to become energy ourselves." The Titans responded immediately, surrounding the Starweaver with a corona of plasma hot enough to vaporize conventional ships. But humanity's vessel did something unprecedented. It began to sing. Lieutenant Rodriguez had adapted her diplomatic algorithms to translate human music into pure energy wavelengths, creating a symphony of light and plasma that matched the Titan's own frequencies. "Music is mathematics," Rodriguez explained later in her report to the Council. "And mathematics is the one true universal language. We didn't try to speak to the Titans, we tried to dance with them." The response shocked even the most optimistic members of the crew. The Titan's plasma forms began to pulse in rhythm with the Starweaver's emissions, creating patterns of light that stretched across millions of kilometers. Through these patterns, humanity learned the truth about these ancient beings. The Titans weren't hostile. They were lonely. They had evolved so far beyond physical form that no species had been able to truly communicate with them for eons. Every ship they had encountered had either attacked them in fear or tried to study them as specimens. The Starweaver was the first to approach them as equals, to seek understanding rather than advantage. Dr. Osei's xenolinguistic matrices worked overtime, processing centuries of light patterns into comprehensible data. "They're not just communicating," he reported, his eyes wide with wonder. "They're sharing their history. Every pulse is a story, every fluctuation a memory. They've been trying to reach out all this time, but no one could hear them." The breakthrough came when Commander Paddle suggested synchronizing Aria's quantum consciousness with the Titan's energy patterns. "If we can think like them," she theorized, "we can truly understand them." The merger of artificial and ancient intelligence created something unprecedented in galactic history. Through HFY, the Titans shared their knowledge of the universe's earliest days, of civilizations long turned to dust, of scientific principles that humanity had barely begun to grasp. In return, humanity shared something the Titans had lost millennia ago: perspective. Through the Starweaver's crew, these ancient beings rediscovered the joy of seeing the universe through young eyes, of experiencing wonder and curiosity again. The Council's emergency session, convened when they realized the Starweaver had entered Titan space, turned from crisis management to astonished observation. Species that had feared and avoided the Titans for thousands of years watched as humanity transformed a potential catastrophe into a diplomatic revolution. The Helios Accords, signed 3 weeks later, didn't just open Titan space to safe passage. They established the first exchange of knowledge between corporeal and energy-based life forms in known history. The Starweaver's adaptable nature proved crucial, serving as a bridge between physical and plasma-based existence. Technical specialist Tanaka's biomechanical interfaces were modified to create permanent communication channels with the Titans, ensuring that this newly forged connection would outlast the Starweaver's mission. Technology isn't just about building better machines, she noted in her logs. It's about building better bridges between forms of life that might otherwise never connect. The Helios incident became a testament to humanity's core belief that understanding could triumph over fear, that innovation could bridge any gap, and that sometimes the boldest approach was simply to reach out with open hands and an open mind. As the Starweaver prepared to continue its journey, the Titans bestowed upon them a gift: knowledge of slipstream corridors through spacetime that no physical species had ever mapped. Captain Chen's final transmission to the Council about the incident was characteristically succinct. Sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from conquering the unknown, but from befriending it. The Quantum Nexus. From the Archives of the Galactic Historical Society. Entry date: 4890-05 Standard Universal Time. Subject: the Schrödinger Paradox Resolution. The coordinates have been marked as forbidden in every star chart for over 15,000 years. The Quantum Nexus, as ancient astronomers had named it, hung like a dark jewel in the void between the Carina and Perseus arms of the galaxy. No probe had ever returned from its depths. No sensor could penetrate its mysteries. The most advanced civilizations in known space had declared it an impossibility, a violation of physical law that was best left undisturbed. The Starweaver's approach to the Nexus was anything but accidental. Using the slipstream knowledge gained from the Titans, Dr. Morrison had calculated that the anomaly's position wasn't random. It was a focal point where multiple dimensions intersected in ways that shouldn't be possible. Every species that studied the Nexus treated it as a problem to be solved, Morrison explained during the mission briefing. But what if it's not a problem? What if it's a door? The Council's urgent warnings were immediate and unanimous. The last expedition to the Nexus, led by the highly advanced Axiom Collective, had lost 30 ships and over 12,000 lives. But Captain Chen's response reflected humanity's unique perspective. The Axiom tried to force their way through. We're going to try to understand our way through. The Starweaver's first revelation came from an unexpected source. While studying the Nexus's quantum signatures, HFY had detected patterns similar to the plasma language of the Titans, but far more complex. Dr. Osei's xenolinguistic matrices suggested something revolutionary. The Nexus wasn't just a spatial anomaly, it was attempting to communicate. It's like watching a four-dimensional being try to talk to three-dimensional space, Commander Patel observed. The distortions we're seeing aren't chaos. They're compression artifacts from higher dimensions. The breakthrough came when Lieutenant Rodriguez had an insight that would reshape galactic science. "We're thinking about this wrong," she said during a crew conference. "Every species that's approached the Nexus tried to study it from the outside. But quantum mechanics tells us that the observer affects the observed. What if we need to become part of the observation?" The proposal was audacious. reconfigure the Starweaver's quantum core to match the resonance frequencies of the Nexus itself. The ship would essentially become a quantum observer on the same wavelength as the phenomenon it was studying. The risk was enormous. A miscalculation could scatter the ship's atoms across multiple dimensions. Through technical specialist Tanaka's biomechanical interfaces, the crew linked their enhanced consciousness directly with HFY and the ship's systems. They weren't just going to observe the Nexus. They would become quantum observers existing in a state of superposition with it. The transformation began slowly. The Starweaver's smart matter hull began to shift, not just in three-dimensional space, but in ways that human eyes couldn't process. The crew's enhanced minds, linked through HFY, experienced reality from entirely new angles. They were no longer just watching the quantum state of the Nexus. They were part of it. What they discovered changed everything. The Nexus wasn't a natural phenomenon at all. It was a construct, a vast quantum computer built by a civilization so advanced they had learned to encode themselves into the fabric of space-time. The disruptions it caused weren't accidents. They were security protocols designed to prevent less advanced species from interfering with its operations. Dr. Webb's xenobiological insights proved crucial. They didn't transcend physical form like the Titans, he reported. They transcended reality itself. They found a way to exist as living quantum information. Through their quantum resonance, the Starweaver's crew made first contact with what they would call the architects, beings who had evolved beyond the constraints of traditional spacetime. The architects had watched galaxies born and die, had seen civilizations rise and fall, had waited eons for a species capable of comprehending their existence. What followed was an exchange of knowledge that would transform humanity's understanding of the universe. The architects shared insights into the quantum nature of reality that made faster-than-light travel look primitive by comparison. Humanity, in turn, shared something the architects had lost in their transcendence, the perspective of beings who still saw wonder in the fundamental forces of existence. The Council's reaction to the Starweaver's success was a mixture of awe and disbelief. Species that had declared the Nexus impossible to understand watched as humanity not only solved its mystery, but established diplomatic relations with beings that existed beyond conventional reality. The quantum protocols established in the aftermath of the discovery would open new frontiers of scientific understanding. The Starweaver's approach, seeking to understand rather than overcome, had once again transformed an impossible barrier into a bridge between forms of existence. Captain Chen's report to the Council was characteristically philosophical. The universe's greatest mysteries aren't puzzles to be solved, but conversations waiting to happen. Sometimes you have to stop trying to make sense of things, and instead let them make sense of you. As the Starweaver prepared to depart, the architects left them with a modification to HFY's quantum architecture that would allow for continued communication. The ship that had learned to speak with plasma beings had now learned to converse with quantum entities, each encounter expanding the definition of what it meant to be alive in a universe far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. Symphony of Species, from the Archives of the Galactic Historical Society. Entry date, 4891-6 Standard Universal Time. Subject, the Concordance Crisis. The warning came through the quantum channels the architects had helped establish. 3 of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations were on the brink of war. The crystalline collective, the biomechanical unity, and the photonic consciousness had each laid claim to a newly discovered region of space, dubbed the Genesis Sector, an area rich with protomatter that could be used to create entire solar systems. The Council was paralyzed. Traditional diplomatic channels had failed. The crystalline collective viewed reality through the lens of perfect geometric order, the biomechanical unity through organic evolution, and the photonic consciousness through pure energy states. They weren't just arguing over resources, they were arguing from entirely different paradigms of existence. The Starweaver's intervention wasn't requested, it was demanded. After the ship's successes with the Titans and the Architects, The Council had come to see humanity's vessel as something more than just an exploration ship. It had become a symbol of possibility. Three species who can't agree on the fundamental nature of reality. Captain Chen mused as they approached the Genesis sector. Sounds like a job for the species that makes a habit of questioning reality itself. The Starweaver's arrival in the disputed sector immediately demonstrated why humanity's approach to space exploration had changed the game. While other diplomatic vessels would have maintained neutral distance, the Starweaver used its adaptive hull to simultaneously manifest crystalline formations, organic structures, and photonic resonances. It wasn't just communicating with each species, it was speaking their physical languages. Dr. Morrison's quantum insights, enhanced by the architect's teachings, revealed something about the Genesis sector that all three species had missed. The proto-matter isn't just raw material, he explained during the first trilateral conference. It's quantum entangled on a massive scale. Whatever one species does with it will affect all of it. Lieutenant Rodriguez's diplomatic algorithms, working in concert with HFY's quantum consciousness, proposed something unprecedented. Instead of dividing the sector, transform it into something entirely new. The Starweaver demonstrated how the three species' different approaches to reality could work in harmony rather than opposition. Through technical specialist Tanaka's interfaces, they showed how crystalline structures could channel and amplify photonic energy, which in turn could guide biomechanical evolution. The three species weren't competitors for resources. They were potential collaborators in an experiment that could revolutionize the nature of creation itself. You're not looking at three different ways to use the Genesis sector, Commander Paddle explained to the assembled representatives. You're looking at three parts of the same process. The question isn't who gets to create, it's what you could create together. The demonstration that followed would be recorded in every scientific database in known space. The Starweaver used its adaptive systems to show how the combination of crystalline geometry, photonic energy, and biomechanical evolution could create structures that none of the species could achieve alone. Dr. Webb's xenobiological expertise proved crucial in showing how such collaboration could birth entirely new forms of life. The Genesis Accords, signed aboard the Starweaver, didn't just prevent a war. They established the first true collaboration between species with fundamentally different views of reality. The Genesis sector would become known as the Concordance, a place where the boundaries between crystal, light, and life would blur into something entirely new. Dr. Osei's contribution was perhaps the most profound. Using the xenolinguistic principles he had developed studying the Titans and refined with the architects, he created a new form of communication that transcended the limitations of each species' perspective. The language of creation, as it would come to be known, allowed the three species to share concepts that had been untranslatable before. The Council's archives would note that the prevention of war, while significant, was perhaps the least important outcome of the Concordance crisis. What humanity had really achieved was proving that different ways of perceiving reality weren't obstacles to be overcome. They were tools that could be used together to achieve something greater than the sum of their parts. As the three species began their unprecedented collaboration, the Starweaver's crew was invited to witness the first joint creation, a stellar nursery where crystalline matrices would guide photonic energy to nurture biomechanical life. Captain Chen's observation would be quoted in philosophical texts for generations to come. The universe isn't a place of either /or. It's a place of and also what if. The only real limit is our willingness to see beyond our own way of seeing. HFY's quantum consciousness, enriched by the experience, developed new protocols for facilitating interaction between radically different forms of intelligence. The ship that had learned to speak with plasma beings and quantum entities had now learned to help different species not just communicate, but create together. The Concordance would become a symbol of what was possible when different perspectives were seen not as conflicts to be resolved, but as instruments in a greater symphony. The humans, with their adaptable ship and synthesist crew, had shown that the greatest innovations come not from choosing between different ways of thinking, but from finding ways to think together. Legacy of innovation. From the archives of the Galactic Historical Society. Entry date: 4890-7 Standard Universal Time. Subject: the human revolution. 5 years after the Starweaver's first emergence from Earth's orbit, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The ship that had puzzled the Council with its solitary approach had spawned a revolution in how civilizations approached exploration, diplomacy, and the very nature of progress itself. We thought we were watching the birth of a spacefaring species, Council Elder Vix reflected during the 5th Anniversary Symposium. Instead, we were watching the rebirth of galactic civilization. The changes began with ship design. The massive fleets that had been the hallmark of space exploration for millennia gave way to adaptive vessels based on the Starweaver's principles. The Crystalline Collective, once rigidly devoted to geometric perfection, now produced ships that could shift their crystalline structures to resonate with different forms of life. The biomechanical Unity's new vessels incorporated living systems that could evolve in response to new challenges. Even the photonic consciousness, which had once existed purely as energy, developed ways to interface with physical matter. But it wasn't just technology that had changed. Dr. Webb's approach to xenobiology had sparked a revolution in how species studied one another. We stopped trying to categorize life forms by what they were, he explained during a lecture at the Centurion Academy, and started understanding them by what they could become. The Titans, once feared as destroyers, had become teachers, sharing their ancient knowledge through the communication protocols developed by Lieutenant Rodriguez and Dr. Ose. The architect's quantum insights, translated through Aria's evolved consciousness, were transforming understanding of reality itself. The Genesis Sector's concordance had become a laboratory where different approaches to existence worked in harmony, creating wonders that defied traditional classification. Commander Patel's neural architecture theories, combined with technical specialist Tanaka's biomechanical interfaces, had given birth to a new field of study: consciousness engineering. Species were learning not just to communicate across vast differences, but to experience reality from entirely new perspectives. The real breakthrough wasn't technological, Captain Chen noted in her final report to the Council. It was philosophical. We stopped seeing differences as barriers and started seeing them as building blocks. The Starweaver itself had evolved far beyond its original specifications. Its hull, which had started as adaptive smart matter, now incorporated crystalline elements from the collective, photonic channels from the consciousness, and living systems from the Unity. Aria had grown into something unprecedented, a quantum intelligence that could bridge the gap between physical and transcendent forms of existence. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the galaxy approached problems. The Council, which had stood as the arbiter of protocol for tens of thousands of years, transformed into a laboratory of ideas. Species that had once competed for resources now collaborated to unlock new possibilities. The rigid hierarchies of technological advancement gave way to a web of interconnected innovations, each species contributing its unique perspective to the greater whole. Dr. Morrison's work on quantum mechanics, enriched by the architect's insights, led to the development of the Universal Translation Matrix, a system that could not just translate language, but translate reality itself. Species could now share not just words, but ways of seeing, thinking, and being. The language of creation, born in the crucible of the concordance crisis, evolved into a medium for sharing more than just ideas. It became a way for civilizations to dream together, to imagine possibilities that no single species could conceive alone. Humanity's greatest contribution wasn't showing us new technology, Elder Vix would later write. It was showing us new ways to think about what was possible. The Starweaver's final mission wasn't to a distant star or mysterious anomaly. Instead, it returned to Earth, carrying with it representatives from every major civilization in known space. But it wasn't just ambassadors who came. It was teachers, students, dreamers, and innovators, all drawn by humanity's unique approach to understanding the universe. Earth became not just another member of the galactic community, but a nexus of transformation. The Academy of Synthetic Understanding, established in the Himalayas, became a place where species could learn not just from human teachers, but from the very process that had made the Starweaver's mission possible. "We didn't set out to change the galaxy," Captain Chen reflected during the Academy's inauguration. "We just refused to accept that different had to mean separate, that progress had to mean losing something, that understanding had to mean changing who you are. Sometimes, the greatest innovation is simply being willing to see the universe not as it is, but as it could be." As new generations of adaptive ships set out from shipyards across the galaxy, each carrying crews trained in humanity's synthesis approach, the old question that had once puzzled the Council found its answer. Why had humanity sent only one ship? Because sometimes one ship, carrying the right idea, is all it takes to change everything. The Starweaver remained in service, not as a relic, but as a living symbol of continuous adaptation and growth. Its legacy wasn't in the technologies it had spawned or the crises it had solved, but in the idea it represented, that the universe's greatest mysteries could only be understood by those willing to question not just their answers, but their questions themselves.